Yes.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending this meeting of the Council. Please note that the meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel, and I welcome members of the press and public who may be viewing this meeting remotely. We now move into the formal business of the meeting. Can we take the notice convening the meeting as read? Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have apologies from Councillors Eyre, Graham King, J Heron, M Heron, D Truman, M Walker, S Watson, and Councillors Vera and McKeith have indicated they may be late. We also have apologies from Honorary Alderman Forbes and Tate.
Thank you. Are there any further apologies?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Dennis Wilson.
Thank you. The next item is the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 13th of November 2024. I understand that Councillor Mullen wishes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As these minutes confirm, now amended, Council unanimously agreed that when the Mayor withdrew the Lib Dem motion on winter fuel allowance 2 meetings ago, she did so before the amendment to that motion had been seconded or voted on. The Mayor's reasoning then was that the motion was substantially the same as the previous motion, i.e. the Conservative one on winter fuel allowance. But Council at the last meeting, as reflected in these minutes, agrees that this can't be true because the motion was not amended at the time of its withdrawal. Section 23.3 of the Council Procedure Rules says that the Mayor's ruling as to how those rules are constructed or applied shall not be challenged. But which rule exists to be interpreted to allow the Mayor to unilaterally withdraw a motion? The answer is that there isn't such a rule. Indeed, Section 12 of the Council Procedure Rules, Motions on Notice, does not make a single reference to the Mayor.
Of the last minutes?
In which case, Madam Mayor, point of order.
This is just for accuracy. It's not to be debated.
Yeah.
Point of order on which rule?
On 12.3.
Give me a moment, please.
Madam Mayor, perhaps if Councillor Mullen could clarify what the point of order is.
Yeah, thank you. It's relating to the lack of a constitutional basis for the withdrawal of the Liberal Democrat motion on winter fuel allowance and the fact that the advice given in respect of this was that the...
Again, Councillor Mullen, sorry, that's not a point of order. This is about the accuracy of the minutes. Again, it's not to be debated. Okay. Can we agree the minutes? Thank you. Do any members have any interests to declare?
Can I move electronic vote for the minutes, Madam Mayor?
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If the officer could start the voting running, please. So if the vote could be closed now, please. There are 42 votes in favour and 18 against, therefore the minutes are agreed.
Do any members have any interests to declare?
Madam Mayor, just for transparency, I work for ATG Tickets, just on the cultural motion coming up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a query about the outstanding motion on rail travel. I understand the Cabinet receive or have access to a Grand Central rail pass, and I just wondered if the Cabinet or anyone else has taken a free rail ticket, whether that would need to be declared as part of this motion, given we're discussing that company. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 13, notice of motion 3. I am a WASPy woman. Thank you.
Okay,
So, Madam Mayor, so far as declarations of interest are concerned, it's a matter for the individual member to decide whether they have an interest that's relevant or not to the matter under discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
I'm sorry, I missed what else I'd written. I'm trustee on the Empire. Thank you.
We'll now move on The Council was saddened to learn of the death of former councillor Dennis Richardson. Dennis was representing in the Horton ward on the council for 10 years. During the time he served on a number of committees, including Planning and Highways and the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committees. Dennis was also a long-standing member of the Licensing Committee and was Mayor of Sunderland in 2009 and 2010. I ask that we now observe a minute's silence as a mark of respect to our former colleague, Dennis Richardson. Now, I understand that the Council has received an award. Councillor Leonard, do you have something to present to the Council?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to present the National and Global One Planet City Challenge Award. The One Planet City Challenge is the largest and longest running climate change challenge in the world, with 359 cities and 48 countries entering this year. We were announced as a UK winner in September this year, and then we were announced as one of the global winners, 1 out of 2 in November. We were praised for our ambitious and multidimensional and well-balanced approach to climate action across all the sectors, with particular praise for the innovative shadow board, highlighting inclusive decision-making and a model for other cities to replicate. Being shortlisted was a real achievement, but to win reflects a huge amount of effort from everyone at the City Council and our partners as we continue to work hard together towards our ambitious target of becoming carbon neutral as a city by 2040. I am therefore beyond proud that Sunderland has been named as a World Wildlife Fund One Planet City winner nationally and globally.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. I understand that the leader also has something to present to Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm absolutely delighted that Sunderland...
Council, the leader speaking, please be respectful.
I'm absolutely delighted, Madam Mayor, that Sunderland is a music city. I would like to place on record my thanks to Michelle, to Frankie, to Marty and to Andrew for all their brilliant hard work in bringing this forward. It was a pleasure to be at last night's announcement and to hear in detail the plans of what being a music city will mean for Sunderland. We join a network of 14 other cities, including Berlin, Dusseldorf, Manchester, Sydney and Valencia, to name but a few. The benefits to the city from the music economy are substantial. The Stadium of Light has sold 1 million plus tickets since 2009. The fire station, Pop Rex, the bunker are hives of activity, and the transformation of our evening economy has been led with new food and beverage offers at Sheepfolds, 3 Stories, amongst a few others, which all have music at their core. I'm delighted to support this strategy because music is not just an industry, it's a source of cultural enrichment that brings people together and delivers real and lasting benefits. Madam Mayor, I can't wait to see what the year of music which lies ahead will bring to Sunderland, as we are recognised as a member of Music Cities Network in recognition of its valuable contributions to the network, active participation in fostering growth and collaboration in their local music sector, and dedication to collaborating globally to build a better music ecosystem. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank those members who have given notice of their wish to speak. If any member who hasn't given prior notice wishes to speak at any point during the meeting, they should please raise their hand to indicate. That concludes my announcements. We will now deal with the notice of motion, which is titled Open Access Rail Operators. I call upon Councillor MacDonagh now to read and move the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yes, high-ranking figures in the rail industry have expressed serious concern around Labour's rail nationalisation plans and their impact on open access rail operators. Many are suggesting that open access operators may be forced off the rails as track access is removed by the new nationalised operator, or that operational priority is given to nationalised services. Sunderland's rail link to London is run by an open access operator, Grand Central, and since the announcement that nationalised LNER will cut their service from Sunderland to London in December, Grand Central will provide our only link to the capital. The open access model has given Sunderland a rail link to London and York, which is used by tens of thousands of people a year, and is a vital link for both business and leisure travellers. The Council will therefore agree that the Leader of the Council must write to the Secretary of State for Transport urgently to urge her to protect our London rail link and give assurances that open access operators will not be forced off the network. This Council also agrees that our rail link to London is essential for the prosperity and growth of our city, and will engage with Grand Central and provide the support necessary to ensure the long-term future of this service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Reid, do you second the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I second the motion, and I'd like to speak immediately after Councillor MacDonagh.
Councillor MacDonagh, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. But before I begin, I'd just like to ask the Leader of the Council, maybe he'd like to give us a song, seeing as we're the Music City now, so maybe at the end, we'll see. But thank you, Madam Mayor, and I hope that this motion can bring us together in support of this incredibly important rail service. This is a very important motion, and your response to it may secure the future of our rail link to the capital, or may lead to its cancellation, so please do listen carefully. Our Grand Central rail service is at risk due to uncertainty around the future of open access rail operators. Since Labour have swept to power, huge uncertainty has unfortunately hit the industry. This is not a debate on rail nationalisation. I have my own opinions on that and could speak for many, many hours like the anorak I am around train services, I can assure you. Though I sense I'm not as much of an anorak as, as Peter Wood over there, who I think trumps me completely. The rail nationalisation bill has been introduced recently in a move that the Labour government trumpet as good news for passengers. Sadly, open access operators don't seem to have been thought about and barely get a mention in the bill. This is important for Sunderland, as our only link to London is provided by an open access operator, Grand Central. Open access operators are private companies who run trains at their own risk and are not subsidised by the government. Grand Central was launched in 2006 by some plucky railwaymen who wanted to take a chance and give it a go, bringing a London link to Sunderland for the first time in decades. They paid their way and didn't expect a single penny from the government in order to start their venture. Private money bought the trains, hired the staff and took all of the risk. Prior to this, Sunderland had no rail link to London since 1984. Since the withdrawal of the Cleveland Executive, one service a day which left Sunderland at 5:50 a.m. So you'd have to be up early to catch it. And I can imagine Peter Wood there with his flared trousers on the platform, ready to head off to London back in those days. But that's a long time ago now, isn't it, Peter? Thanks to Grand Central, we now have multiple services to the capital each day, which provides a huge economic boost to the city and options for leisure travellers, often at a much lower price than nationalised LNER. It has also provided competition, which has demonstrably cut prices and driven up standards on the East Coast Main Line. During COVID, whilst other operators could access government support for the railways, Grand Central did not get a single penny. Grand Central have also invested over £20 million in Sunderland since they began many years ago, including a new headquarters that the Labour group were celebrating, of course, only months ago. As many of you will know, the nationalised LNER service was withdrawn in December, leaving Grand Central as our only link to the capital. The private sector has led the way where the nationalised operators have stepped back and sadly abandoned our city. I've spoken to leaders from various open access operators, and the universal opinion is that the government have not engaged with open access operators, and there are real worries that these open access operators are going to be forced off the network, either by their track access agreements not being granted, or by being pushed into second place when it comes to navigating Great British Rail when it comes into being. If this happens, then Sunderland can kiss goodbye to its London rail link, making our city a second-class city when it comes to transport connections. I've written to the Transport Secretary and received an incredibly vague response, but the biggest worry is that open access operators have received the same. Will they have a business going forward? Will they have a place on the new network? That uncertainty is affecting investment into services as they plan for the future. Grand Central have now submitted a new application for a track access agreement, which would see the service to Sunderland secured right the way through to 2037. This will also see new trains purchased, which would be bigger, faster and more environmentally friendly. As a council, we must speak with one voice and support this application, as if it is refused, it would see our London Rail Link removed. The rail link is vital to our future growth, and its loss would have a massive economic impact, as well as wiping us off the railway map, relegating us to a railway backwater. Refusal would also be a huge sign that the government have no interest in open access operators, who have introduced new routes to many communities across the country who had previously lost their services under British Rail. Track access applications consider many things, and the views of local authorities along the route are highly valued when these decisions are being made. We must let the government know how important this service is for our city, its future growth, and that their inaction could cost us dearly. As a council, it is important that we speak with one voice on this issue and make the government understand how important our rail link is. I do hope that you will all support this motion to ensure that we do speak with one voice and save our rail link to London. And here's a little thing for Peter Wood there: don't be a Dr. Beeching. I hope you enjoyed that, Peter. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thousands of residents of Sunderland use our current rail links to the capital, and they also given access to all the stops along the line. As Councillor McDonagh mentioned, before the Grand Central started its direct Sunderland to London service, there was no route provided by nationalised British Rail. Indeed, councillors from both parties, Labour and Conservative, expressed support for the Grand Central proposed route. That motion was proposed by then Labour leader Bob Simmons and then Conservative leader Peter Wood. Now, I have taken the view through experience that if former Councillor Peter Wood has a view on public transport, that is almost certainly the right opinion to have. So the Grand Central line is regarded as being successful and crucially profitable. So any derailing, pun intended, of the franchise would be on purely ideological grounds and not practical ones. If the rail nationalisation from the current Labour government goes ahead, it must not come at the cost of our vital rail link to London. The East Coast Main Line has more access-operated services than other main lines elsewhere in the country, meaning we are uniquely positioned to be negatively affected if the government chooses to be ideological and make sweeping changes to open access rail operators. It is also worth noting that the nationalised northern services are considered so unreliable that the new North East Mayor wants to take them over and run them herself, so I doubt nationalising Grand Central would serve us any better. So in conclusion, whilst I imagine we all have train horror stories to speak of, I believe this to be a case of if it isn't broke, don't try to fix it. And given the precarious nature of our rail services heading further north with the Gateshead flyover scandal, let's not rock the boat, to mix my metaphors there, when it comes to our rail links further south. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I understand Councillor Edgeworth wishes to move an amendment. Councillor Edgeworth, would you like to read that out, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the fourth paragraph, delete from link until the end of that paragraph and replace with links by A, giving assurances that open access operators will not be forced off the network, B, emphasising the importance of open access for Sunderland to the Office of Road and Rail, and C, taking steps to require LNER to reintroduce direct services between Sunderland and London. Do you want me to read out the whole amended motion as well? Yeah, excellent. So the amended motion would read, high-ranking figures in the rail industry have expressed serious concern around Labour's rail nationalisation plans and their impact on open access operators. Many are suggesting that open access operators may be forced off the rails as track access is removed by a new nationalised operator, or that operational priority will be given to nationalised services. Sunderland's rail link to London is run by an open access operator, Grand Central, and since the announcement that the nationalised LNER will cut their service from Sunderland to London last December, Grand Central will provide our only link to the capital. The open access model has given Sunderland a rail link to London and York, which is used by tens of thousands of people a year and is a vital link for both businesses and leisure travellers. This council will therefore agree that the leader of the council must write to the Secretary of State for Transport urgently to urge her to protect our London rail links by A, giving assurances that open access operators will not be forced off the network, B, emphasising the importance of open access for Sunderland, the Office of Road and Rail, and C, taking steps to require LNER to reintroduce direct services between Sunderland and London. This council also agrees that our rail link to London is essential for prosperity and the growth of the city, and will engage with Grand Central and provide the necessary support to ensure the long-term future of the service. Thank you.
Councillor Fagan, would you like to second the amendment?
I'll second the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Edgeworth, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, for one, would like to hear Peter Wood speak at length on this subject. Liberal Democrats agree with the thinking behind this motion. We want to see open access operators continue to thrive under whatever system is in place for managing Britain's railways. Our amendment seeks to make sure that the motion recognises how the regulation of the railways and open access operators works in practice, and that's why we're emphasising the importance of open access for Sunderland to the Office of Road and Rail, because it's them who grant track access. They're the economic and safety regulator for the railway and independent of government, and make decisions about whether or not Grand Central or any other operator can provide a service to and from Sunderland. The Office of Road and Rail takes heed of the Secretary of State's views but does not take direction from them. Having said that, given that the Secretary of State's correspondence with the Office of Road and Rail in recent weeks suggests that she's going to alter the guidance issued to them and has asked them to take a sterner approach when it comes to open access operators like Grand Central, I do think this motion is timely, but we should be putting pressure on the Office of Road and Rail as well as the Transport Secretary. Secondly, we want to add in a requirement for the Secretary of State to require LNER to run direct services between Sunderland and London after they were cruelly axed in December. LNER is a Department for Transport holding company. It's effectively a nationalised service even before this government's rail nationalisation programme. We think it's right that this Labour government should back Sunderland, do what's right for us, and require LNER to restart direct services between London and Sunderland. Ideally, this would be more than one early morning and one late night service during the week. Increasing the frequency of direct LNER services would improve the number of people using them, provide more choice and competition between LNER and Grand Central services, and crucially improve reliability for passengers travelling to and from London. Whilst I want Grand Central to succeed and thrive, sadly, in recent months and years, they've become far too unreliable, and I, like so many people, are reluctant to use them because they don't get you where you need to be. I've been caught out by cancellations or find myself stranded as services stop halfway through your journey. No alternative transport is ever provided to get you to your destination, and they offer a refund knowing full well that this won't be enough to cover the cost of a fresh on-the-day ticket with another company. It seems that operators put the least reliable trains on the open access routes in order to protect their punctuality statistics on the franchised routes, meaning that Grand Central's passengers to and from Sunderland are consistently being let down. This urgently needs to change, and Grand Central urgently need new and reliable trains if our direct rail link is going to continue to be reliable and continue operating. This uncertainty and unreliability with Grand Central is why we need the government to require LNER to bring back direct services between Sunderland and London and to increase the frequency of them. Our group teamed up with Lib Dem colleagues in Parliament to ask parliamentary questions of transport ministers about this, asking them to continue to run direct services beyond December. But sadly, it seems just like the Conservative government before them, this Labour government are also letting Sunderland down, with ministers refusing to agree to the Lib Dem request for direct LNER services continuing. Labour MPs in this council appear to have been missing in action, and it was only the Lib Dems who've raised this campaign in Parliament. As I said on Look North with Lindsay Leonard, sadly Dominic couldn't join us on that occasion, given this council has a Labour majority, all the city's MPs, the regional mayor, run the government with a huge majority, are nationalising the railways and LNER as a publicly run company. If this combination of circumstances can't deliver direct rail services on LNER between London and Sunderland, then what is the point of the Labour Party? So I hope all councillors from all parties can support this amendment to make sure that Sunderland gets the best possible rail service through a mix of both open access operators and direct LNER services. Thank you.
Councillor Fagan, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Under 1 part 13 L, I would propose a motion without notice to adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes. There's elements of Councillor Edwards' amendment which I like. As you're aware, I've got an amendment I was intending to propose myself. I would like to just take a moment to look at a paper copy to see if there's elements of that I can incorporate into my motion or support in this. So I would propose a 10-minute adjournment so I can do that properly consideration without holding the meeting up, Madam Mayor.
We're in agreement for amendment for 10 minutes. Yep. Come back in.
Can I have a written copy of the amendment?
Come back 22. Council, if you'd like to come back into the room at 22. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. I understand Councillor Edgeworth is withdrawing his amendment. Is that correct?
In a rare show of cross-party unity, yes, I withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Fagan, do you second that?
Yeah, I'll second that, thanks.
Thank you. Does Council agree that the amendment is being withdrawn? Thank you. I understand that the Leader has an amendment. Can I ask you to read that out, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So on the original motion, the new cross-party amendment is delete the whole of the first paragraph. At the start of the second paragraph, insert current after Sunderland and delete the rest of the paragraph after Grand Central. In the fourth paragraph, delete the word must and replace with will. After Secretary of State for Transport, insert and chair of the Shadow Great British Railways. Delete the remainder of the sentence and replace with to impress upon them the benefits to Sunderland of our current open access operator and to highlight how this is in line with government stated rail policy set out in Get Britain Moving document, which states wherever there is a case for open access adds value and capacity to the network, they will be able to continue to compete to improve the offer to passengers. And now I just need to find out what we actually else agreed. The Council urges the Government to A, give assurances that open access operators will not be forced off the network, B, emphasise the importance of open access for Sunderland to the ORR, and C, take steps to require LNER to reintroduce direct services between Sunderland and London. This Council therefore also agrees that our rail link to London is essential for the prosperity and growth of our city and will engage with Grand Central and provide the support necessary to ensure the long-term future of the service. Therefore, the amended notice of motion reads, Sunderland's current rail link to London is run by an open access operator, Grand Central. The open access model has given Sunderland a rail link to London and York, which is used by tens of thousands of people a year and is a vital link for both businesses and leisure travellers. This Council will therefore agree that the Leader of the Council will write to the Secretary of State for Transport and the Chair of the Shadow Great British Railways to impress upon them the benefit to Sunderland of our current open access operator and to highlight how this is in line with the government's stated rail policy set out in Get Britain Moving document, which states wherever there is a case that open access adds value and capacity to the network, they will be able to continue to compete to improve the offer to passengers. The Council urges the Government to A, give assurances that open access operators will not be forced off the network, B, emphasise the importance of open access for Sunderland to the ORR, and C, take steps to require LNER to reintroduce direct services between Sunderland and London. This Council also agrees that our rail link to London is essential for the prosperity and growth of our city and will engage with Grand Central and provide the support necessary to ensure the long-term future of the service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Leonard, would you like to second the amendment?
I second the amendment.
Leader, would you like to speak on the amendment?
I will. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just to effectively be quick, I think I agree with 96% of what Paul and Dominic said. The rail link to Sunderland is vitally important to our growing economy, and it's something that we need to protect, and that's why I'm happy to write to the Chair of Great British Railways and to the Secretary of State to reiterate what is the stated policy of the government, that open access rail operators are part of our network. The benefits to Sunderland over the time we've had Grand Central is immeasurable, and I'm able to work across the chamber to emphasise that we want to see rail service to Sunderland improve, expand, not just north-south to London, but east-west as well to Manchester and Liverpool and the Midlands. This is an issue I'm sure we can all agree. So I'm hoping if cross-party, both sides of the chamber can support this amendment, we can speak with a united voice to the government about how we believe rail is in the future of Sunderland. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Leonard, would you like to speak?
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak on the amendment? Councillor McDonough, would you like your right of reply?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, very refreshing to see that we could all come together on this. We know how important it is, so thank you to all parties for coming together. It's what we need to do, probably more often, to be honest with you. So it's good that we've got a really, really positive outcome here. Hopefully we have the rail link to London for many, many, many years to come, and hopefully tonight's meeting and all coming together will bring that a little bit closer as well. So thank you to everyone in the chamber tonight, and yes, absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
We will now vote on the amendment. Is everyone in agreement, or would you like an electronic vote?
So if the officer could open the vote, please. This is the vote on the amendment. So if the officer could close the vote now, please. And there are 65 votes in favour and no votes against, so the amendment is agreed.
Would you like the new substantive motion read out, or are we happy just to move on? Move on? Read it out?
Happy to read it out, Madam Mayor, again, why not? So the new amended motion reads, Sunderland's current rail link to Sunderland is run by an open access operator, Grand Central. The open access model has given Sunderland a rail link to London and York, which is used by tens of thousands of people a year and is a vital link for both business and leisure travellers. This council will therefore agree that the leader of the council will write to the Secretary of State for Transport and the chair of Shadow Great British Railways to impress upon them the benefit to Sunderland of our current open access operator, and to highlight how this is in line with the government's stated rail policy set out in Getting Britain Moving, which states wherever there is a case that open access adds value and capacity to the network, they will be able to continue to compete to improve the offer to passengers. The Council urges the Government to A, give assurances that open access operators will not be forced off the network, B, emphasise the importance of open access for Sunderland to the ORR, and C, take steps to require LNER to reintroduce direct services between Sunderland and London. This council also agrees that our rail link to London is essential for the prosperity and growth of our city, and will engage with the Grand Central and provide the support necessary to ensure the long-term future of the service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is the substantive motion agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The next item is reception of petitions. Do any members have any petitions to present?
Councillor Mullen.
Councillor Mullen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm presenting a petition signed by 19 residents of the city, all of whom I'm pleased to say are present today. We, the undersigned, recognise that the Lib Dem motion on winter fuel allowance was withdrawn unconstitutionally. Section 12 of the Council Procedure Rules does not mention the Mayor. By contrast, it says that powers of withdrawal are reserved for the Chief Executive. Subsection D specifies that withdrawal for reasons of repetition is solely for the Chief Executive. Article 5 of the Constitution says that the role of the Mayor is to uphold the Constitution and make interpretations only when necessary. There is no overall right for the Mayor to make rulings. The Council Procedure Rules limit this to points of order and clarification. We therefore call for the Lib Dem motion on winter fuel allowance to be brought back to Council and for a constitution review to be undertaken. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can we agree to refer these to the appropriate Chief Officer? Thank you. The next item is questions from the public. I will now read out the questions that we have received. School crossing patrols by Greg Peacock. At the full council meeting held on the 13th of September 2023, a motion was passed relating to the issues with school crossing patrol officer recruitment. Can the portfolio holder or leader of the council advise what progress has been made on the addressing creative ways to address the problem of school crossings patrol recruitment since then, and how many crossing patrols have been undertaken by volunteers from existing members of staff between the 13th of September 2023 and today's date? I believe Councillor Leonard, you'd like to reply?
Hello, thank you, Madam Mayor. Officers have continued to advertise and recruit school crossing patrol officers. This has included more emphasis on social media, advertising through school newsletters and additional letter drops to parents. Officers will also continue to attend job fairs, and we also have a continuous live vacancy advert on North East Jobs to bring greater awareness to the public. Since 2023, 9 school crossing patrol officers have retired from their role within the council's recruiting, and there have been 13 recruited new officers, which has demonstrated a positive direction of travel in filling vacant posts. The council will continue to explore new ways to improve recruitment and maintain road safety outside schools.
Next question. And this is about investments from Catherine Ty. Will the council review its connection with and commit to taking any steps necessary to divest from any institutions that enable Israel's ongoing breaching of international law, specifically via directly financing or facilitating illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestine territories, including via the TWPF pension fund, which has known complicit investments of over 146 million in such companies? And I believe Councillor Modi, you'd like to reply?
Madam Mayor, well, first of all, it's related to this, just welcome the recent ceasefire in Gaza, Israel, which has, we hope, finally brought an end to the most horrific of conflicts, and we hope all parties respect the ceasefire deal and implement it in full at the earliest possible opportunity. Madam Mayor, the Council does not directly invest in external companies for commercial return, and in accordance with the Council's approved Treasury Management Policy, any surplus cash flow is only placed and invested with specified credit-rated financial institutions. South Tyneside Council is the administering authority for the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund and operates this service for around 200 employers, including Sunderland City Council, the other Tyne and Wear local authorities and Northumberland County Council. When considering any issue with regard to the pension fund, it is important to recognise that the Pensions Committee members act in the role of trustees and have a fiduciary responsibility to both employers and members to seek an appropriate financial return in making investment decisions. For the level of risk that is taken, purely personal interests, social, moral or political views should not be taken into account. The pension fund takes its position as a responsible investor very seriously. Madam Mayor, every year the corporate governance arrangements of the fund are formally reviewed by the Pensions Committee. These arrangements are documented in the investment strategy statement and the corporate governance and responsible investment policy. The investment strategy statement sets out how environmental, social and governance issues are taken into account in the selection, non-selection, retention and realisation of investments. Social is essentially about the impact on society. This includes being a responsible and active owner by companies, by engaging with these companies through the investment process and in the considered voting of shares. All of the investment managers used by the pension fund are signatories to the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment, which seeks to ensure investors are responsible owners and issues such as the impact on society by companies are taken into account in investment processes. The pension fund has reviewed the United Nations report of businesses in occupied territories and specifically the database of companies listed and can confirm it has no direct holdings in any of these companies. However, the fund does invest in a number of pooled investment funds which may have some exposure to these companies. The pension fund has no direct control over the selection of companies in these funds. The pension fund is a member of the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum, who have been in dialogue on behalf of the local government pension scheme with groups pursuing an interest in global conflict zones, including the Palestinian-Israeli territories. The forum has been focusing on establishing an approach that highlights the human rights framework whereby companies commit to best practice in this field. In addition, the Pensions Fund does not believe any of the companies in which the pension fund invests are in breach of any international laws or treaties. The Council has representation on the Pensions Committee and we are committed to ensuring our voice is heard and our views are factored into decision making on an ongoing basis. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
On what rule?
Rule 11.1. I just noticed that the text of this question is different to the one that was circulated, so I just wondered if councillors could be informed as to how and why that has happened, and whether it's with the residents' consent, and if there's any interference in changing the wording of questions that's submitted by members of the public. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, when there are issues with questions from members of the public, as you'll be aware, the Chief Executive and the Mayor consider them to see if there are grounds for rejection. Sometimes the question can simply be amended and that makes it acceptable. And in those circumstances, we would try to facilitate that and enter correspondence with the resident with a view to achieving that.
Thank you. Gifts to councillors by Stephen Pounder. What protocols are in place for council taxpayers to gift items to councillors? Can gifts be delivered to named councillors at City Hall? Councillor Mordy.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members are required to declare gifts hospitality of over £50 in their register of interest as part of the Code of Conduct, but currently there are no protocols dealing with the manner in which the residents can provide gifts to councillors. Thank you.
New housing developments by David Newey. I live in Ryhope, Doxford, and seeing a massive amount of new build houses being raised every day for a number of years now. With this, we've had to put up with a manner of nuisances to roads and footpaths at all times, felt trapped and unable to get out on a road that didn't have works in progress, notwithstanding the absolute mess from mud and builders' debris. Why does the council not require builders to put in all road and foot infrastructure in place before any houses are raised? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council and its partners are investing heavily in the South Sunderland growth area to deliver 3,000 high-quality new homes with new and improved schools and community infrastructure. To date, over 20 million has been invested in significant highway improvements, the majority of which were complete in advance of the ongoing residential development, including upgrading the A19, A690 roundabout junction, the widening of City Way, and the delivery of the Ryhope-Doxford Link Road, all of which improve accessibility and connectivity in the area. Each residential development is also bringing new street infrastructure, footpaths and cycleways to increase sustainable transport and active travel solutions. As part of each development and infrastructure project, developers and contractors are required to submit a construction environment management plan setting out the approach to the project delivery and the procedures that will be adopted to mitigate impact on areas such as highways, the environment and the local community. Construction and environmental management plans are scrutinised by the local planning authority and relevant stakeholders, and there's continuous dialogue with developers regarding compliance and the management of any issues raised by residents and the ward members. Development continues to progress at pace at South Sunderland and has become a destination of choice for those looking for high quality family homes, not just in Sunderland South growth area, Madam Mayor, but also, as we say, around Riverside Sunderland and what will be coming through in the next few years. I'm delighted a Labour-led council has shown the ambition in transforming our city into an extraordinary place to live, work and play, and there really are exciting times ahead for our city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Chester Road speed limit. Mr and Mrs Hall. Will the council lower the speed limit and install fencing along the westbound carriageway of Chester Road? This is between Sevenoaks Drive and the A19 roundabout. This is needed to protect pedestrians and protect homes on Marlborough Road being hit by cars which lose control and come off the main road. This has happened several times in recent years, including earlier this month. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council officers have conducted an extensive investigation into the speed limit on this stretch of road. Currently, it remains at the national speed limit of 60 miles an hour as the area is not built up. It has no intersection and is similar to the other side of the A19 roundabout towards Penshire. Additionally, there has only been one significant accident recorded on this stretch in the last 10 years, which involved a motorcyclist. Given this low level of incidents, the council have no plans to introduce any interventions at this time. We thank Mr and Mrs Hull for raising their safety concerns, and we will continue to review the current arrangements, traffic speeds and accident data. So, should the situation worsen, we will consider appropriate mitigating measures.
Next question is grooming gangs by Kev Stanton. The mass exploitation of children by rape gangs has led to horrific abuse of the children of our country. Steve Ashman, the former Chief Constable of Northumberland Police, has stated in relation to this, I think there is every likelihood that this is happening in every town and city across the country. Will the Leader of the Council commit to writing to the Government to call for an inquiry into this national scandal? Councillor Modi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, sexual abuse and exploitation are the most vile and horrific of crimes, involving rape, violence, coercive control, intimidation, manipulation, and deep long-term harm. All perpetrators must be punished and pursued, and victims and survivors must be protected and supported. That is why the Labour Government is determined to act, strengthening the law, taking forward recommendations from independent inquiries, and supporting stronger police action and protection for victims. I would point out to Mr Stanton that there has already been a national inquiry into grooming gangs, a 2-year inquiry which reported in February 2022, which sadly no recommendations were taken forward by the previous government. The Home Secretary has recently announced a national review into grooming gangs, and the government is also accelerating the work of the Grooming Gangs Task Force set up under the previous government, which has seen a 25% increase in arrests between July and September last year. Since coming into office, the Safeguarding Minister has met with Professor Alexis Jay and survivors of the child sexual exploitation and abuse and convened a dedicated cross-government group to drive forward progress against the Jay recommendations and to deliver wider change. Madam Mayor, it is time to deliver action on behalf of survivors. To ensure that victims' voices remain at the heart of this process, the Government will set up a new Victims and Survivors panel to guide ministers on the design, delivery and implementation of new proposals and plans, not just on the Jay report, but on wider work around child sexual exploitation and abuse. And obviously we'll have a debate later today where I'll see more on the issue, Madam Mayor.
Next is City of Sanctuary referendum by Sam Woodsbrass. As there were no recorded meetings or ward surgeries to discuss with members of the public at the time, will Sunderland City Council accept a call for a referendum to the City electorate and residents on the membership to the City of Sanctuary status? I believe Councillor Modi would like to reply.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I would like to thank Reform Head and Town Councillor Woods-Brass for his comment. And just to reiterate, there has been 2 local votes since June 2022, with local elections in May 23 and May 24, where the people of the city could express their views on the policies that this council implements, and also refer Councillor Woodbrass to the July 24 general election, again, since the vote on Sanctuary City. This is a decision that was supported cross-party. Every single member of the council in the chamber at the time supported this work, which I would point out again to Councillor Woodbrass, involved one of his former Reform councillors on this, Madam Mayor. This is not an issue that should be party political. This is about protecting some of the most vulnerable people in society.
Thank you. Next is street cleaning by Darren Best. I'm sick to death of contacting about the state of the path with litter dog fowl and the overgrowing weed on the front path of Bladen Avenue, Turn End Farm, from Baxter Road to John Bosco School. It's a disgrace, and it's the only path in Turn End Farm that the sweeper does not go up or down. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to Mr Best for bringing this to our attention. Sunderland City Council provides cleansing services on a scheduled frequency, including street sweeping, litter removal and dog fouling addressed as part of this process. Footpath weeds are treated twice annually as part of our maintenance programme. We will ensure that the section of Bladen Avenue you identify from Baxter Road to John Bosco School receives the agreed level of maintenance. In the meantime, we request the cleansing team to inspect the area and address any immediate issues. Please be assured that maintaining clean and safe public spaces is a priority for the Council.
Next we have SAFC season tickets by Kai Crawford. Can the leader of the Council explain how he justifies taking a season ticket to Sunderland Football Club valued at over £2,000 per season for himself and his guest during a cost of living crisis? Many hard-working people are struggling financially, yet this decision seems to disconnect from their realities. Does this reflect the values of the Labour Party, or does it represent a two-tier system where political leaders benefit while others suffer? Councillor Mordy.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the issue of the football tickets was fully debated in this chamber at the last council meeting, and I would refer Mr Crawford to my previous answer on that, which is available on the Council's YouTube channel. But I would like to address directly Mr Crawford's comments about hard-working people who are struggling financially. I would agree, Madam Mayor. It has been a difficult time for working people who've had to suffer under Lib Dem and Conservative austerity and the impacts of wage stagnation. But I'm delighted to report to Council, Madam Mayor, that things can only get better for working people under our new Labour government. Labour's October budget helps working people. Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced measures to fix Britain's foundation to deliver changes including...
Point of order.
On what rule?
14.28. What has this got to do with the question asked by the member of the public? He's asking about a season ticket, not what the Labour government is doing for hard-working people, which is absolutely zilch.
Within the body of the question, it does actually state, sorry, I've just turned the page over. Many hard-working people are struggling financially, and I believe the leader is replying to that part of the question.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The problem, why we get the interruption, Madam Mayor, is because they don't want to hear what this Labour government and this Labour Council is actually doing to support hard-working people. So there's two parts of this question, Madam Mayor, that I would like to focus on. One is hard-working people, and the second is the values of the Labour Party. Labour's October budget helped working people. Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced measures to fix Britain's foundation to deliver change, including new funding to deliver an extra 2 million NHS operations, scans and appointments a year so that hard-working people can get the treatment they need. Freeze on fuel duty, Madam Mayor, so hard-working people are not paying more at the pump. Protecting working people's pay slips by not increasing their national insurance or income tax. £30 million to provide free breakfast clubs so the children of working people can start the day ready to learn.
Madam Mayor,
A
sorry.
6.7% increase in the national living wage,
Point of
meaning
order,
a
Madam Mayor.
rise for 3
On what rule?
hard-working people.
Leader.
I'd like to support, for the first time in my life, Councillor O'Brien. I've followed Sunderland Football Club since 1959, and I do not want it to be dragged in to the political nonsense that we're hearing tonight from Councillor Mordy. He's not referring to the main body of the question. I've got a lot of time for you, Michael. I've known you a long time, but this isn't good enough.
Leader, can you continue? Can you round the finish off the answer, please? As quickly as
I'm getting there, Madam Mayor. So, as I said, Madam Mayor, a 6.7% increase in the national living wage, meaning a pay rise for 3 million hard-working people. Them of the values of the Labour Party I've been asked by from Mr Crawford. I'm happy to announce and to reaffirm them. Furthermore, Madam Mayor, I'm delighted to say that the work of this Labour Council in attracting inward investment is paying off. As the most recent performance report, the Cabinet highlighted that the
Madam
employment
Mayor,
rate
point of
for
order,
Sunderland
please.
has increased.
Thank you.
I'm going to move that you remove as chair, because your chair, your chair. It's in the Constitution. I'm allowed to do it. Your chair, you have been patently political during this question period, patently.
Madam Mayor, through you, the Mayor's ruling should not be challenged during the meeting, and it appears that that's what... The Mayor has made her ruling. Could you please abide by the Mayor's ruling?
We will now move on to the next question. Austerity and tax increases by Mary Body. Council Leader, in the Sunderland Echo, you suggested that cuts and tax rises are inevitable. Yet you have previously claimed that Labour would increase spending to reduce cuts and council tax hikes. Why has your party not followed through on this promise? Will you stand up to Sir Keir Starmer's austerity, or will you roll over and accept the cuts being forced upon the residents of Sunderland? The people deserve clarity and action, not further hardship. Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. This is the one I've been looking forward to, honestly. Madam Mayor, I would like to thank Lib Dem activist and former candidate Mary Body for her question. It gives me... We've got no candidates. There isn't currently any candidates. It gives me the opportunity to spell out in some detail the impact of having a Labour government means for Sunderland. The most recent local government finance settlement, which was always going to be the last one-year settlement, was the best we've received in years. The settlement is the first step of this new Labour government putting into its promises from opposition into action in government. As I've said previously, you cannot undo 14 years of Lib Dem and Conservative economic vandalism in one budget and one settlement, but what we have seen, and this is a massive step in the right direction. Madam Mayor, the settlement provides Sunderland with an increase in core spending power of 8.6% compared to 6% nationally. Prior to the settlement, the Council's 3-year medium-term financial plan projected a deficit for 28-29 of 76.5 million, and we still had a projected deficit of 4.5 million for next year's budget on top of the efficiencies we've already identified. However, following the first finance settlement of the new Labour government, our projected 3-year deficit now stands at £39.004 million, an improvement in one settlement of £37.5 million because of the decisions of this Labour government has taken to direct resources into areas that need it the most, undoing the damage of previous Lib Dem and Conservative governments. And we no longer now have to find the additional £4.5 million worth of cuts for next year that were on the table before the finance settlement. I'll have more to say at Cabinet in February and Budget Setting Council that follows about the specifics of our budget proposals. And as I said in my piece in the Sunderland Echo, there will still be difficult decisions ahead in the short term as we finally deal with the hangovers of the Lib Dem and Conservative economic policy. I look forward to feeding in and playing an active part in the consultations on the new funding model being proposed by the government as we move towards multi-year settlements from 26-27, that if they follow formulas similar to this year's one-year settlement can only mean more funding for Sunderland. But anyone who doesn't acknowledge this significant improvement in the finances of the Council as a direct result of the policy implemented by the Labour government in its first 6 months and tries to portray this as austerity 2.0 is not being honest with themselves, as the facts speak for themselves. And as I've said repeatedly, I'm certain that the people of Sunderland will be better off by the end of this Parliament than they were at the beginning of it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Footpath gritting by Ian Mowbray. On Saturday, the 11th of January 2025, at approximately 9:15 a.m, I walked my dog at Seaburn. I wore appropriate winter clothing and non-slip walking shoes. Nevertheless, just behind the tram shelter, I fell on a sheet of ice, badly banging my head and back. I required hospital treatment. Today, the 12th of January, I very gingerly took my dog for a short walk. This was later to ensure more ice melt. To my astonishment, the recreation path and various footpaths had all been gritted. Why today and not yesterday? Councillor Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr Mowbray. Sunderland Council endeavours to clear ice and snow from pedestrian areas and footways in line with its winter maintenance policy and associated plan. The treatment of footways is a secondary priority to maintaining the safety of the city's carriageways, as these routes are vital for emergency access and public transport. When resources permit, our environmental services team undertakes the treatment of key pedestrian areas, including footpaths near shopping centres, bus stations and areas with high foot traffic or larger populations of older people. While we strive to respond to changing conditions as quickly as possible, the timing of treatments may vary depending on resource availability, weather forecasts and priorities across the city. These factors will account for timing differences on the dates you reference. Thank you for bringing this to our attention and we hope you are recovering well.
Thank you. The next question is paddle tennis by Sam Johnston. A commercial paddle tennis facility is opened in the city this month. In 2023, the Conservative budget amendment suggested that the council open their own facility of this type. Can the portfolio holder confirm whether the council has invested in this proposal, and if so, what the outcome of this investigation was? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, and thank you, Sam, for your question. Getting Sunderland active is a key priority for our city, and I'm happy to share that we're working with everyone active who are in the final stages of arranging a lease with an organisation who will develop a paddle tennis facility in the grounds of the Silksworth Tennis Centre. It is anticipated that this will be completed in the next month, and we await timelines for the organisation with regards to the paddle centre being complete and operational. It's a good news story again, and with that I'll call it game, set and match. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We will now move on to the questions from the members of the council. First question is on domestic abuse from Councillor Fiona Tobin. Councillor Checker, I believe you'd like to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Domestic abuse is a national emergency. The new Labour government is committed to halve violence against women and girls in the next decade. Can the leader outline the work Sunderland City Council will take to tackle this epidemic?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Tobin for this very important question. Domestic abuse is a national emergency. Sunderland City Council is wholly committed to the government's mission to halve violence against women and girls in the next decade, and will do all we can to actually eradicate it. Through our multifaceted approach to tackling domestic abuse and violence against women and girls, this council, together with key partners, are taking the following actions to support the government's mission, including refreshing our domestic abuse and violence against women and girls strategy. In February, we'll be launching our 10-year domestic abuse and violence against women and girls strategy for this city. The strategy, co-created with partners and survivors, prioritises prevention, victim support and holding perpetrators accountable through a long-term, mission-orientated approach. We'll be strengthening our local governance around action to tackle domestic abuse and violence against women and girls by establishing our survivor-led assurance group to work alongside our domestic abuse executive board so that lived experience directly shapes local decision-making and action. We'll be investing in services through the commissioning of trauma-informed support co-designed with survivors, including safe accommodation, emotional and psychoeducational support, capacity building and perpetrator provision. The Council will also collaborate with the Police and Crime Commission, the Integrated Care Board and the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities to fund specialist support to domestic abuse victims with additional needs and challenges. We'll be building new refuge provision. We've secured £10 million to create innovative trauma-informed accommodation for survivors with a focus on those with multiple unmet needs. We'll be amplifying survivor voices and advocating change through active participation in national and regional networks and campaigns such as Transforming Together, Equality for Women and Girls, White Ribbon Day and the 16 Days of Action for against Domestic Violence. We'll be contributing to national efforts. Sunderland is the only North East local authority participating in MHCLG national evaluation of the domestic abuse duty, helping shape best practices nationwide. And we're also proposing a new commitment to the Women's Aid Motion for Change to address the root causes of violence against women and girls and to ensure all survivors have access to specialist support. We're confident that through these comprehensive efforts, Sunderland can become a safer place for all and play its part in eradicating abuse across the city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question is Metro Fiasco, and I believe that's coming from Councillor Andrew Wood.
I entirely forgot about this. I appreciate the remind, Madam Mayor. Metro Fiasco. North East Labour's mismanagement of transport policy has meant new metro trains still aren't anywhere near to be in full service, and the cancellation of service in recent weeks due to the failure of repair or demolishing the Gateshead flyover and letting it go into a dangerous state of near collapse. Will the leader do the right thing by the people of Sunderland and vote against metro ticket price hikes at the next mayoral cabinet meeting and veto any increases until we have a metro service we can actually rely on? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Mordey, I believe you'd like to respond.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, this new metro rolling stock represents a significant upgrade on the current units. Introduction of the new fleet is the biggest project since the construction of the metro system, with each new unit requiring 90,000 individual tests and checks. This inevitably takes time. 2 new metro trains are now in service, with 23 of the new carriages expected to be in service by the end of 2025. Gateshead Council have successfully completed strengthening works on the Gateshead flyover to prop a pillar directly over the metro tunnels, and metro services between north and south of the River Tyne have now resumed. Gateshead Council, as the highways authority for that area of the flyover, are developing proposals for next steps. Any proposed increases in public transport fares is always carefully considered by the Necker Cabinet, and we're currently in process of negotiations and talks between the Mayor and the other council leaders. And I would say to Councillor Wood, tune into the next Cabinet and wait and see.
Well, that's not really an answer.
Follow-up question, Madam Mayor? That's neither a yes or a no. And I asked for a specific answer. Would the leader like to give us a specific answer, not tune in next week? Thank you very much.
This isn't EastEnders.
It's not an ongoing series, Michael.
Negotiations are currently ongoing, Madam Mayor.
Move on to the next question. Community parking management schemes. And I believe Councillor Michael Hartnack, you would like to ask the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Community parking management schemes. Does the portfolio lead for transport believe that community parking management schemes are fit for purpose, given that they only limit non-resident parking for around 3 hours per day? Or does she think neighbouring authorities which operate properly enforce 24-hour permit schemes would better serve some parts of our city? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Leonard, I believe you want to reply.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Hartnett for the question. I do consider that the community parking management schemes that we currently operate are fit for purpose. The main purpose of a CPMS is to strike a balance between reducing the impact of long-term commuters in residential areas while maintaining flexibility for residents and businesses. All locations which are requested to be considered for a CPMS are assessed under their own merits, given the needs of the residents, businesses, the nature of the area and the type of parking available. Many schemes are located where main parking available to residents is on-street parking and spaces can be at a premium. These schemes are community-led, where following engagement and consultation with residents and businesses in the areas identified, they have an input into the most suitable scheme and then they themselves decide whether they would like that to be implemented. Not all areas choose to implement the schemes put forward. As for 24-hour CPMS schemes, we do have 2 areas that operate these hours. On consultation, these were the hours the residents felt were best fit for the scheme, and where that was identified, that commuters left vehicles for shift work and unsociable hours.
Supplementary, Madam Mayor. The streets in my area, and thanks for the response, but the streets in my area in Fulham Ward, despite representation to the council, have to suffer motorists parking in their street for sometimes over a week at a time, and most recently somebody received a fine for one occasion, but not for 7 days while they went on holiday via the metro to the airport. What would you like councillors to advise those residents in these streets who adhere to the conditions of a flawed scheme but see those exploiting the scheme going unpunished?
If there are specific issues within a specific area, there is multiple ways that this can be addressed. We don't need to have a question about this. If there is a problem, please come to me, come to the officers. The scheme is fit for purpose. It's not going to be a scheme that is going to be perfect. Is it fit for purpose? Yes, it is.
Move to the next question. Play Zone project, and I believe the question has come from Councillor Alex Samuels.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will the leader join me in welcoming the expansion of the Play Zone project across the city, the first of which will be located in the Southwick Ward, providing state-of-the-art modern play and sport facilities to local residents?
Councillor Jones, I believe you'd like to reply.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Samuels, for bringing this question to Council today. Yet again, more good news for the city. The expansion of the Play Zone project is something I, like you, greatly welcome because Play Zones have community engagement at the heart of it. So Play Zones are the Football Foundation's exciting new national investment programme that aims to create outstanding activities and spaces and tackle inequalities in participation in activity and sport. This is very much in line with our strategic priorities to create an active Sunderland and driving forward the Health and Wellbeing Board's priority of reducing inactivity. Officers work very closely with the Football Foundation, and it is fantastic for the city that they have a phased approach to receive applications to enable a play zone in all 5 areas of the city, including Washington and the coalfields. Play zones are very similar to multi-use game areas and will incorporate floodlights and a multi-sport design that will be inspired through local resident consultation. The Southwick Play Zone was selected by the Football Foundation as a front runner and will be one of the first to be built in the North East, with construction starting in the next 2 months, followed quickly by the West Play Zone, which will be built in Silksworth Ward. Once constructed, the 5 play zones could release a total investment of £1.25 million across the city. Thank you, Councillor.